I am Katina Horton.
And I am Toria Driver. And we were talking earlier today, and we were talking about summertime's coming, and we were outside, and I was hearing different sounds like a jackhammer. I was hearing birds chirping, the warm sun on my skin, and how that had brought me back to my childhood. And then I began to reminisce about walking to school and hearing these different sounds, and then I started to feel like, wow, I miss those times. And then a little bit of sadness started to creep in, like those times are gone. And so we're going to talk about today of how different seasons can impact your emotions and bring about grief.
Amen. Yes, amen. And as you were just talking and mentioning about the different sounds, it made me think about the one place that I lived in, and I did the majority of my self-work / healing work there. And one thing about the spring is like everything is in bloom. And so I got used to waking up and smelling the flowers and hearing people outside and hearing, the kind of hum of the lawnmower.
Yes.
And sometimes I would hear people, you would hear hammers and
Yeah.
drills, because people would be up early in the morning. They would be working on their lawns.
Yeah.
They would be doing projects starting sometime like 7 in the morning. And it would be warm on those days, but not like extremely warm because it was springtime. And of course, we're in the Midwest. So you know how the Midwest in springtime is. You don't get much of a spring. But just like those sounds, like you said, and the smells of what you would see during that time. And then the springtime, me thinking of like the one tree that was just to the right of the duplex that I lived in. And it would start budding with the white and the really light pink flowers coming on it.
So pretty.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and so, just having that visual and the birds coming back and they're tweeting, and then you've got the morning dove with the ooh, 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 that bird, making that sound. And so you have the birds and the squirrels playing and eating, and sometimes the birds will be fighting or bathing in the bird bath. And then also the chipmunks will come back. And as cute as they were a little bit destructive, but I just enjoyed, you know what I'm saying? I just enjoyed watching, listening and watching, and just all of the visual. Like, it's almost like life is returning in a different form in this era. You know what I'm saying? In this
life
season.
Returning.
Right,
So
in spring.
good.
You see what I'm saying?
That's so good. So seasons are changing.
Yes.
Life returning.
Yes, yes.
Winter times the bird go away. They
Right.
fly to the south.
Right.
And then the construction stop. The gardening stop.
Right.
Certain smells are not in the air as they would be in the summertime.
Right.
And so I love that you said that when you start to hear these things, it's life returning.
Life returning.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when it was, whenever, like, when I lived there, whenever the early winter would come, there would be some sadness, like deep sadness on me. And I realized, I'm like, where's the sadness coming from? A lot of, like, my last few flowers that were able to hold all the way to early winter, they would have died out. And then the trees would be bare. And so it was like me, that sadness was like, even though, yes, I was still alive, and we know God is alive and on the throne, right?
Amen.
And we got the living word. And it's like, however, like a lot of the things that were the plant life, that type of things, those had died off, right? For that season. The birds have flown home to the south by then, and a lot of the little, chipmunks were gone. The squirrels are packing up, like, let's get everything into the ground, although they didn't remember where they packed the nuts and whatever food they had to pack under the dirt. But it's like that life, that other form of life of you being able to see that outside.
That's so good.
That, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That part, it's almost like it was arresting. When you think about it, even, it's making me think about, since I've been doing so much studying on covenants lately, it's been making me think about how we talked about with that, the land of Jubilee, the year of Jubilee.
Oh.
And how the land had to rest, and
Right.
the Palestinian covenant, where it was a lot of the commandments and the laws dealing with the land and the land resting.
Yeah.
We know we're supposed to rest as a people, but then when you think about that land resting, and so it was like during that, winter time, the land resting, and then, but then, like I said, the sadness, because that part of that life we were seeing, the plant life, the animals leaving for a little while, and
That's so good.
you see what I'm saying? Them going, and then us having a break from that, and God is like, okay, I'm bringing you in a different season. But then, when you have the cold, when you think about it too, though, when you have the cold coming, that coldness of the winter, it can also bring the coldness of grief, even though it's the rest on that aspect. But then you got, us having to hold I guess I would say hold the tension between the two. You know how you have grief, and then when you think about the winter time of grief, oh my gosh, that's a rough time, because winter time, everything is brutal. You feel the cold is down to the bones, especially here in the Midwest. And we think about wintertime as kids, walking to school, 2 pair of blue jeans, 3 pair of blue jeans on, can hardly move, stiff. Sometimes snow all the way up to our knees. And we still had school, -40, below zero, and all of that. But you think about the wintertime of grief, that's a rough time. Just like, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's really putting something on my mind. And it just seemed like that is life. We have a season where things are died down or resting. And then we have season where things, after that season, they come back to life. It comes back to it. It's a cycle. It's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle in the seasons, in the spring, summer, fall, winter seasons. It's a cycle in our lives. How when things die in our lives, and then, but there's always a new season coming. And I love that you brought up the fact that this is a new season, because when I woke up this morning, that's the very word that I heard God say. He says, you're in a new season.
Wow.
I was like, I'm in a new season now? Because I thought I was in a new season before. But he said, you're in a new season. And so I received what you're saying, and how I was resting. Now it's time for me to come back to life. And and to walk in that. So this is a different season. And I know that he had told me that this is not a season of mourning for me.
But that, and then when I think about, as you were just talking about, God bringing us into a new season, he's taking us out of the winter time of grief, and not saying that we won't be dealing with grief, because grief, believe it or not, is almost like a lifelong friend. And at the same time, it's like a computer program that runs in the background, and you don't realize until some one of our 5 senses, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, seeing, one of those 5 senses get triggered and activated. And it's almost like that little friend that comes back to the forefront of that program that's running in the foreground. It's like, I'm here. This is your reminder.
Oh,
you see
that's
what
where
I'm
I was
saying?
getting at. It's almost like it's a reminder of what we've been through, and how, and also how we got through it.
Amen.
How we got through it. And so for Ecclesiastes 3, it's a time for everything. And God had me reading this the other night, and it says, there's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance.
Amen.
A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. And I just think that just reminds me of, even in the different seasons, there's just always, there's a time for everything, a time for everything. And sometimes there's not a time for grieving.
Right. Amen.
There's not a time for grieving. It's not a time for grieving. It's time for rejoicing. It's time for celebration.
Amen.
It's time for joy. But sometimes, that grief can kind of creep in there. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but you're right. Sometimes it can creep in there. And then it's like at those moments, as my therapist would say, just let it wash over you.
Mhm.
You know, it's to get it out and to keep it moving. And it makes you think about that song. It might be Frankie Beverly and Mays, Joy and Pain is like sunshine and rain. Think about how many days we have where the sun will be shining on one part of the sky, the other part of the sky. You can go 2-3 blocks down and it's pouring down raining.
Yeah.
And then you might see a rainbow at the back. You see that covenant reminder of God saying, like, this is not how I'm going to destroy the earth again. You see what I'm saying? We're wiping it all out, you know, my people, because of being disgusted with sin. So we got that rainbow reminder. You know, we got the sun and the rain, and we know that even though we're in a season, a new season, and like you said, how God revealed that to you, and I felt like at the end of 2024, as a matter of fact, I was telling one of my coworkers, I said, God is bringing me into a new season for 2025. And I said, and 2025 is going to be the year of movement. And I said, I cannot play around in this season.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I cannot play around.
Yes.
I said, this is a season of movement. How it's going to happen, what he's going to do, I don't know. He's got all of the details wrapped up, but I can't play around in this season.
That's
you see
right.
what I'm saying?
That's right.
And I told her, I said, we got to stay ready in this season. We can't be talking about, let's get ready.
Nope, we got to be ready.
We got to be ready. You see what I'm saying? Oh, let me do, I got to get this. No, you better get all that stuff ready.
Yeah.
And so when an opportunity hits and God say, okay, I want you here, 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 and there, we're not trying to get ready.
We're ready.
We've already been prepping. And so when the time comes, you see what I'm saying? We got the message in our purse and our wallet, whatever. We ready.
Yeah.
We're ready,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
This is the season, the winning season. And like I said, as far as being able to still deal with that grief at the same time. And I noticed for me, when it comes to the winter time, that's a rough season for me because it brings up a lot of very traumatic, I guess I would say very traumatic memories, a lot of sadness for the winter time because a lot of the trauma that was brought upon my kids and I was during the winter season. You see what I'm saying? As the winter season got ready to approach. And so it was like late fall, but it was mainly like that winter season.
Right. Yeah.
And so like that time is always hard. And there are
brings back that
you see what I'm saying? That memory. It jogs that memory. It's just like, oh wow, this is a trigger. And one time it was so strong that I really was praying over that thing, and I said, okay, if this does not release, I'm gonna have to like talk to my therapist about it and figure out a way for my brain to release it. The brain is so strong, and memories are so strong, and the seasons with that trauma, you see what I'm saying, and emotions that's attached to it, that it could take you back, and your brain not want to let that go. You know what I'm saying? It like it might almost wants you like locked there in that. It's just powerful to think about how it happened. And then I remember I must have struggled with this for about like 10 days. My brain did not want me to like stay in the present. And I said, oh wow.
Kept pulling you back in.
It kept pulling me back in.
How that can happen.
Yeah.
How you can keep going, pulling like, okay, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to do that. It's done. I'm through it. And then here it comes again.
Right.
One more time. It's like a lasso, like, I got you. I got you again.
Right. And you know what was doing it? It was the weather, because the weather at that time in that first week of January mimicked the weather right before like the very end, before my ex-husband left out of the home. So the weather mimicked it to a T. In some kind of way, my brain did not want to let that go.
Yeah.
So it was about 10 days of this, and I was like, wow, like usually this is a few days, but like this is starting to concern me because I'm like fighting all day long. I mean, I'm like literally in a spiritual battle of like trauma and, you know, the emotions tagged to that. A friend of mine passed, and it was almost like my brain just needed something to redirect to, and just as quickly as it came on, it left. And it was just amazing how that happened.
Wow.
It's like my brain redirected itself.
Right.
But that just goes to show you how powerful things are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And what we can take for granted. So like I said, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. But that winter season can be a rough season of grief. The winter time, like I said, because you think about it with the cold and the brutal weather and just feeling down to your bones and chill, and you want to just be in the house. You don't even want to go outside to get groceries. You don't want to do anything. You just want to stay inside. But then you think about like the fall time. It's almost like the perfect season because you might get a little bit of rain, but you know, you get mostly sunny days, especially when I think about last year in fall for the Midwest. It was absolutely beautiful. We were spoiled and seeing all the different colors from the leaves on the trees.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? And then you can think about all the different colors of grief that presents itself to you. How you know what I'm saying? How it comes in different colors and forms and artistic.
Isn't that
almost
how
like that
it
rainbow.
just mimics, like the seasons mimics what's going on inside of you, like the emotions inside of you.
Right.
Yeah, that's powerful.
You
That's
see what
very
I'm saying
powerful.
with the fall?
Yeah, and it just reminds me, you were mentioning how certain emotions and how that situation of you, the trauma was coming back and was trying to hold on to you.
Yeah, literally.
And so I was watching a movie the other night, and it just reminds me of this woman who was going through, it's like one thing right after another, just was hitting her. That last thing that happened to her, her mind just, it's almost like her mind just could not, grasp a hold of reality.
Yes.
And it's almost like she slipped in her mind and just kind of made up what was happening instead of reality being reality, if that makes sense.
So almost like her psyche broke or something like that almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a powerful